What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. I apologize for the wait. My wife and I have finally relocated to the Northeast, but it definitely took some time to get out here, get settled. But I'm happy to say that we are finally here, and I'm at a point where I can start working on the STI some more. As you can see, the engine is out. I will get to that in a minute. But look at the shop, guys. Look at this. Pretty damn cool. This is where I'm going to be working out of for at least several months. So we have a lift now, which is pretty damn sweet. As you can see, 2-post lift. And there are, as you probably saw, a couple of vintage cars in the background and one exotic right there, actually. I'm not going to go into too much detail as to what those are about, but yeah, if you have any questions, hit me up in the comments. I'll do my best to answer what I feel comfortable sharing about those cars, but they are really cool, and at some point I might be able to give you guys kind of a tour of those. Now, what I'm working on with the STI, I'm just going to jump right in and kind of show you where I'm at with this thing. So last time you guys saw this car, the engine was still in and it was running, and since I have arrived here in New Hampshire, I decided to pull the engine again. Reason being is I decided to go ahead and replace the engine harness with a brand new OEM unit. The other one was just getting so crusty, man. I just kept snapping clips, and I was just really worried about things like injector clips coming loose as I'm driving and causing a misfire, and that causing us to have a really bad day, month, year, whatever. So just decided to replace it. I was able to source a brand new OEM one, like I said, so that's really cool. So I did just want to pull the engine to get that, as well as my damn valve covers were leaking. Not so much on this side, but definitely on the passenger side here, or I'm sorry, driver's side here, right from this corner where they typically do. And so basically what I did is I got the engine out, put it on the engine stand here, pulled the valve covers off, resealed everything, and now we should be good, I really hope, because I don't want to keep dealing with these leaks. So now that I have that done, I also went through and I had a fuel line that wasn't looking so good. It's actually sitting right here. I haven't cut it to the right size, so I just am leaving it hanging for now until we get it back in. But yeah, I have this nice like press fit 6AN fitting that goes to the Y there, and yeah, we're gonna use this fuel line. This is a nice 5/16 inch fuel hose that can take up to 300 psi, and it's compatible for E85. The reason I'm using like a press fit, so it's basically like a, or it's a barbed fitting rather, so it's a 5/16 barbed fitting with a 6AN on the other side. And the reason that I have to go that route is because in these older WRXs, these OEM hard lines, they have the little barb on the end, and I don't really want to risk trying to make one of those other AN fittings fit where you have to actually cut the barb off, because I don't know, it just seems like you're asking for trouble with leaks and whatnot. But so that's why I am going that route where I'm using some PTFE hose, like these lines right here. These are all PTFE. These hold up really well and they last a really long time because of the PTFE, but you can't use barbed fittings on PTFE. You have to use the PTFE specific fittings that you see here. So what we're doing is just using the appropriate rubber hose with clamps like this. I'm going to replace both of these lines because this rubber is actually quite old, and we're going to use that fuel line that's like hanging off there. We'll cut it down. And then this thing, because I had this kind of just Jenga setup here with this coupler that was going from like a, I don't know if this might be like 3/8 hose down to a 5/16. So, and then I have a better fitting for the regulator because the angle on this one wasn't angled enough, and it was kind of like sitting too close to the fuel rail for my liking. So we have switched it out with this 90-degree 5/16 barb to AN right there. The other thing that I went ahead and did is, if you look right here on this engine plug, you can see this extra wiring harness right here. And as you can see, that is from iWire. And what I did is I actually went ahead and bought their AVCS manifold wiring kit, and so I've actually already pinned it into this plug, and then the other side pins into this gray plug right here. And I've just tucked that harness into the little tray that this sits in, this plastic kind of shield, and just tucked it in and zip tied it down so it's all kind of attached with the main manifold harness. The reason I did that is because shortly after I got the car up and running, it did end up throwing a check engine light, and it was for one of the AVCS either sensors or solenoids. I can't remember exactly which one. And I come to find out that the wiring that I used in there, the little wiring prongs are actually too short on the shielded wire that I ended up pulling out of that other bulkhead harness that I had. And so I just decided, screw it, I'm getting the iWire kit so that I know and I have confidence that when I put this all back in and get it all reinstalled in the engine bay, that the wiring is going to work, and that's not going to be the issue that we're having. You know, I scrapped together those pieces of wire and the little clips, and even had to reuse some of the little like metal prong fittings at the end to pin the plugs. And so yeah, I just don't think it was done to the standard that I would really like it to be. So I got the kit from iWire, and yeah, we just redid that thing. And then I also have the bulkhead side as well, so we'll redo that one on the ECU. And we'll pull it through the grommet here like we did, and we'll pull this one out that I made already for it. So we'll just pull that back out, depin the clip down there, repin it with the iWire setup, and the same thing over here. This one will get repinned as well, and then the ECU. And then hopefully that should take care of the check engine light, and if it doesn't, then I will know that it's not the wiring, and so I need to diagnose the AVCS sensors and or the solenoids to see if there is a non-functioning one or a malfunctioning one. So that's where we're at. The base map for this thing is all set up. It actually was running really well. So once we can get this in the car, I need to go through also and get all of my safety features fixed, because here in the state of New Hampshire, your blinkers need to work, your headlights need to work, your reverse lights, brake lights, rear blinkers, horn, I think even windshield wipers, things like that. Everything needs to work. I don't have to pass emissions with this car because of how old it is, which is funny to me now, but it is old enough for New Hampshire. So we just got to get all the safety things working, and there needs to be no check engine light on the dash, and then I can go get this thing registered so we can get it out on the road and we can do some road tuning. All right guys, so the engine is mostly ready. I just did a few things off camera. Such as getting all the wiring plugged in and routing it in a way that I feel like is going to be the cleanest and most serviceable. And then also this oil pressure sensor I was finally able to install back here, so we can hook that up. And then also the oil, the little sandwich plate in there, that is for the oil temp gauge that you can see sticking out. That's all installed now as well. So good to go there. Got our upper expansion tank bolted on. Everything's all torqued down to spec, the manifold. Now there's some things in the engine bay I need to do before we install this engine. Pull this old wiring harness that I made. Also need to fix this fuel line here as well. And I'm also going to be reinstalling the AC lines. I have decided to install my AC after all in this car, at least for the time being. Just because I think that it is going to be beneficial for driving this thing around as often as I want to. So we're going to do that, and then I need to adjust my AOS as well because it was sitting up a little bit too high and it was getting jammed up underneath the strut bar here, and it was kind of like bending it down, which I didn't like. So we're going to get all that stuff taken care of before we get the engine installed. Oh, and also I have a leaking axle seal. I'll show you what that's about here in a little bit. So we have the iWire AVCS Bulkhead kit here. That's going to plug into the ECU and then go out to those main engine plugs. Oh, also I almost forgot, we are doing a throttle cable. I have a brand new one. There's your part number there in case you ever want to do that. and I'll do a quick walkthrough of how I install that as well. I have a clock spring over here that needs to get installed, as well as this new steering wheel that I was able to source. Look at the condition of this thing, man. This is from a JDM 01 to 03 STI, I think. I think they had the bug eye from 01 to 03 in Japan, and this is a OEM steering wheel, a Momo one that we never got here. It's got the red stitching and the like silver logo, and man, it's like a really nice steering wheel. I'm really stoked to have found this and came across it, because apparently the old GD STI steering wheels, they're not like a plug and play situation. There's some things that you need to mess with, and honestly, I just didn't want to deal with any of it. I wanted to make sure that I still had airbags and such. And then obviously, once we get all that done, we got our AOS to reinstall, and I need to just readjust this mounting bracket up higher so it sits lower in the bay. So I'm gonna get started by pulling all of that old wiring out and depinning those plugs, and then hooking up our throttle cable, fixing that fuel line, and then getting the AOS reinstalled, and then we should be good to throw the engine in. Well, actually, before, we gotta fix that axle seal as well. I just wanna do it before I drop the engine in, just because it's going to make it a little bit easier. All right, guys, so to pull these wires out, I'm just getting this passenger side engine plug depinned. The way you do this is there's this orange cover that goes inside of here, and there's little tabs right here and right here. You need to lift those, and then you can kind of pry the thing out. You want to be careful with these because they do break pretty easily. Thankfully, iWire sent me an extra one in case it doesn't go back in well. But once you do that, you can look in here and you'll see, it'll be hard for you guys to see it, but inside of here there's a little tab that you can just stick a pick in, lift up on it, and the wires pull right at the back. I'll do this one real quick. So just reach in here with this pick, lift up the tab, and then just slides out the back. If you're trying to depin these and you're putting some, and you're pulling on the back even slightly and it's not moving, don't yank on them. When you get that tab lifted, you'll know, because it slides out really easily. You don't have to pull very hard. I've made that mistake before and damaged things, so. If it's not coming out, it's because you're not getting the tab well enough, or you're not lifting it well enough. So you gotta keep trying. So there we go, that's all good. Now we can pull this back through here. And next up is this black clip on this side. This one's a little different. There's a little spot on the side of the plug here. You can stick your pick in, kind of pry up on this little white cover, and I'm not sure if that whole thing comes out or not. Just gotta keep working at it. There it is. So, same thing. You should be able to look in here and you'll see the little tabs. This one's hard to see because it's so black in there, but there it is. Yep, coming right out. So hopefully, now that we are going to be redoing this with iWire's kit, it will take care of that check engine light. If it's still there, it just means one of the solenoids, or both the solenoids, are possibly bad. We'll just have to replace them. You guys are probably thinking, man, that was a lot of work to make that harness just to pull it right back out. And you're not wrong. Definitely was a lot of work, but I wanted to try. You know, these iWire harnesses aren't cheap. You know, for good reason. It takes them a lot of like time, energy, and materials to make them. But now that we have the engine out, I just figure I might as well do it correctly. Because honestly, guys, I could spend seriously days, possibly even weeks, trying to figure out the reason why it was throwing that CEL. And I'm just really eager to get this car on the road and get to tuning. So I really think this iWire harness is the key. All right, so first thing I'm gonna do is feed the wires that go to the ECU through the grommet. All right, here we are. Looks like they're all still okay. So, with this sheet here that iWire provides, shows you all of the colors and their location on the plug. So right here we're doing the ECU plug. And so, yeah, we're just gonna pin these all according to this right here. And then that side of the wiring will be all set. They have the plug out. It's this one right here, which is like this middle plug. It's the smallest one on the ECU. So it says pin 2, white with white stripe. So that's the second one over. So we grab the white with white stripe, which is funny. You can't see a white stripe on a white wire, but it is these ones with the stripes because these ones don't have any stripes. So grab this one like this, and it should click. Yep, so it clicked right into place. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to wire in this plug. I'm going to assume that the shorter one is the wires for that. So I'm going to just route this through here and then double check the colors to make sure. It's flipped this way. And pin 7 is in this hole right here. So white with blue. He's going like this. All right, there we go. This is our little retainer piece. Yep, clips in. Now these can't come out. We all good. All right, guys, so this one is all pinned as well. It was just these 4 across the top, and I routed the wiring back underneath the fuse box, kind of wraps around here, up along, and refastened it up here along with the other wires. So all our wiring is good to go. All right, so next is the throttle cable, guys. There's 2 like 12mm bolts that kind of hold this this plate above the gas pedal on. I'm gonna zip those out. We should be able to pull this whole assembly out, and then I can show you how to disconnect the throttle cable. All right, so I've got the plate loosened. There should be, yeah, so the throttle cable right here, there's a grommet. The grommet should just push through. Sometimes you gotta, yeah, there it goes. So now we should be able to pull through the other side. There we go. So here is the whole assembly. So move this out of the way. Should be able to kind of push these in theory. Yep. And there is your throttle cable. All right, out with the old and with the new. Okay, so really all we gotta do is reverse order this. This goes in here. Yep, snaps into place. This guy goes like that. This snaps right in here. Wow, it really is a much tighter fit with the brand new one. Surprise, surprise, there we go. Okay, so now, cool. And pull from this side, bam. Okay, so I'm gonna feed this through that hole. This is the grommet that kind of seals around the firewall. So, this in. So, there it is. You can see the grommet back there all flush to the firewall. right there, and then, yep, there it is. Nice, fresh, crispy, new throttle cable. Stoked to have that done. All right guys, so it is the next morning and I finished up getting all of the AC lines put back in and installed, and then today just got my crusty old AC condenser put back in. Not super happy with how it looks visually, but of course it gets covered up so we'll never see it. So next on my list, before we get this engine reinstalled, is to pull this axle, and we are going to be replacing the seal right behind the axle cup right here. I'll show you when I get it out. Basically what ended up happening is I was sent the wrong part for that seal. They sent me two of the right side and they're actually different part numbers. So we're gonna pull that, we're gonna get that replaced properly. And wow guys, I gotta say, having a lift is a freaking game changer. I feel super fortunate to be able to work out of this shop for the foreseeable future. It's gonna be so nice to be able to get this car dialed in and then be able to use it for future builds as well. So yeah, really stoked to share this with you guys and be able to capture a lot more stuff in a lot more detail up underneath, because some stuff I just wasn't able to film before. I could do a little bit better of a job with those quick jacks that I have, but obviously this two-post lift is so much better and it is a complete game changer. So unfortunately, in order to replace this seal, I do have to remove the wheel and loosen the knuckle from the suspension so it can kind of drop forward, and that way we have space to pull that axle cup out of the gearbox. I kind of trip out with the lift still. I'm not used to it. It's a little creepy, but seems really solid. So all right, so now I just need to get the seal out, which they are a little tough generally. Oh, that one's coming right out though. Okay. So let's go grab the other seal and then I will show you the difference. All right, so this, my friends, is the part number that you want for the left axle seal. So if you look at this one, it's got that kind of lip up top and it's pretty thick, the whole thing. This one is the right side. It doesn't have that lip and it's overall like thinner. Even the base of it is thinner. So I had this one in there and it was leaking, so don't make the same mistake as I did. I was sent two of these. I ordered a left and a right, and I should have known better. I had seemed to remember that they were different part numbers, but I wasn't totally sure and I just went with it. But sure enough, they are different part numbers. This is the one you want. So I'm just gonna use a little bit of this gear oil as lube for the side of this so we don't like tear the rubber. And we're just going to slot it in. Feels like it went. I think it's in. Okay. There we go. Just kind of hand tighten this. All right, so these strut mount bolts go to 129 foot-pounds. It's 162 foot-pounds on these. Oops, probably helps if I put the e-brake on. Alright, I should be able to stake this properly. And there it is, nice and staked, torqued down to spec, 162 foot-pounds, and we are moving on. Last but not least, our nice little Anki center caps. Cool. All right, guys, so it is like a couple days in the future from where I last left off, and I've been getting my ass handed to me with wiring on this car, but I feel like I've finally gotten almost everything sorted out, so I just wanted to show you what I went through. I didn't want to film the whole process because I honestly am not good at wiring, and man, it was taking me a lot of time to figure out even just some like simple steps with this whole thing. The first thing I started with was wiring in the rest of the DCCD controller, and that came with like a jumper for my STI cluster, gauge cluster that I'm installing into this car, and so I had to, you know, get that all sorted out as well as get the controls working and just get that whole system installed correctly in the cabin here. So I'll show you what that's all about. And then I was also troubleshooting getting my gauges working. I have an AFR gauge, oil pressure / temp combo gauge, and a boost gauge. In addition to that, I had issues with the steering wheel that I purchased, the plug in the back of the steering wheel that is usually for things like the horn and the cruise control and stuff like that. It was a 3-pin plug, and mine on my harness was a 4-pin plug, so I had to sort out stuff with that. And then also getting the STI gauge cluster to work properly. There's also some issues there as well. So let me just take you through. I'll show you what I did, and that way if you guys are thinking of doing something similar, you'll hopefully find out through this that it is not as intimidating as you think it is. So for the DCCD guys, you do have to pull this plug out right here. This is all in their instructions as well, and you have to pin out some of the pins, or you just have to install some pins that they supply. Both of these are from iwire, and yeah, the pin out on it really isn't hard, and the instructions are very clear, and so that part is pretty damn easy. But those come in through the firewall and get plugged in. I had to do the same thing for the AVCS system as well, using their harnesses, and then the rest of the DCCD cables are like over here. So this is a piece of it, and it runs. I have all those wires kind of tucked behind this this plastic plate right here. And so this blue wire is a wire that gets pinned out into a slot up there on the ECU plug, and then comes back into this clip here. And then this clip, it goes to, it has another wire here this brown wire. This is for the e-brake. And so that runs underneath, and it's just this little like splice guy that allows you to plug in your e-brake clip right there, which is that black one, and then it wires off, and then I have it clipped into the e-brake there. These are the controls right here. This push button switches it into auto mode. This dial allows you to adjust your DCCD. DCCD box, the like spider controller or whatever it is right there. It's that black thing. I just have it set in there, and it's secured in place. And then there's also a little G sensor, and mine is tucked right underneath this plastic harness right there, and it's held in by a bolt right there in the floor. So then if you look, there's another cord right here, a gray cord that's coming from the box, loops up inside of here. I just have the excess cord kind of tucked up in here, and that is the cord that goes to this piece right here, this connector, and then this connector is what splices into this clip right here, and that is for the STI gauge cluster. That's so that all that stuff is functional, like the little dial and the auto push button. So that stuff is all functioning on my cluster, and I can show you that in just a sec. So with my gauges, the reason that was kind of an epic was because this little clip right here, this is the wiring for your clock that normally sits right there, and a lot of people use this to wire in these gauges because it gives you that like 12-volt power, as well as a ground, and then as well as like the illumination aspect, where like when you turn your headlights on, it dims the gauges. And it was working. So I wired these in first. They already kind of had these spliced wires from the previous owner, and so I used those, and they were working just fine. I tested it, put the battery on the car, turned the ignition to on, and all of the gauges were working. Now what ended up happening is once I went to install this, which I did, I pinned this plug out, installed the STI cluster, and all of a sudden the gauges stopped working. So whatever I pinned out in here is somehow like interrupting the signal from this harness. So what I ended up doing is switching it from wiring it from this, and I actually wired it straight to my fuse box down here. So what I used is, this is for the cigarette lighter, this fuse right here, cigarette lighter and the mirrors. So it's a 20 amp fuse right there, and so what I did is I used this add fuse, and I put back in the 20 amp fuse in the back, so that it can still power the cigarette lighter and the mirrors, and then added a 10 amp fuse to power our gauges up there. And so it's just one wire that's spliced right there, and it goes all the way up through and over to where the gauge pod sits. And then I used a black wire here, crimped a terminal on the end, like a ring terminal, and bolted it to the chassis up here against this metal plate, which is grounded to the chassis, and that's our ground wire. I'm not worrying about the illumination thing at this point. I can always go back later and add it. And what I did is, it's these white wires coming off of all three gauges right here. I just spliced in this quick connector right here, and I just capped it with the other side, and we'll just leave it like that so it can't like ground itself out or short or something if it contacts like another wire or something in there, or something with metal on it. So that is all ready to go for a later date if I want to add it. So yeah, so now it's working. I tested it. Gauges are firing on again when I turn the car to on. So if you guys have ever wondered how these are removed, it's just these three plugs in the back here, and that's what these green connectors go to. So it's pretty straightforward. It's just a little bit tight in here, so you want to be careful when you're doing this, and don't just start yanking on it when you want to get it out, because the factory wires are not that long. You could mess up some of the wiring or the pinning inside the clips. Just like that. And then let's set this up. I need to find the mount for the boost gauge. Somehow got misplaced, and now the boost gauge just wants to fall out. But let's just tuck it in there. And kind of toss this wiring in there for a sec. I'll make it look nicer in a minute. I just want to show you guys how it's all functioning. All right, I'm just gonna hook up the battery real quick. So we have some power. All right guys, so the battery's in. In theory, this should all turn on when I turn the key to on. Okay. Yep, see, gauges are working now. And we have power to the cluster. Now down here, this button here, when I push that, it glows, see? And what happens is, so see that auto there on the DCCD? If I hit it, it turns off. Now, the thing I was confused about earlier is this dial is not working now, but it was yesterday. See how the arrows, nothing's moving up and down from that like green 0. It should be moving. I think what you need to do is this. And now, let's see what happens when I turn this. Oh. It is, but it's not. Let me turn off the auto again. Oh, there we go. Okay, so now we're working. So it is. So it's controlled by the e-brake a little bit. So there's lock, and then I have all of these settings to roll through and put it back in auto. So that's pretty sweet. I like that this thing glows too. That's really cool. So yeah, everything is working. Oh, and then check this out. We have a functioning horn. So the only other thing that I need to take care of in terms of wiring is this airbag light right here. So I'm going to try the 3.3 ohm resistor trick where you can stick it in the end of the plug. If that works, I'll definitely show you what that's about. But apparently it kind of like tricks it and makes it think that the circuit is complete. It's not the best thing because ultimately I would like to have a functioning airbag, and what that means is this isn't functioning. This steering wheel, the airbag is in here, but the what do you call it, the charge for the airbag, I guess, that has the like yellow connector, that was removed when they sent this out to me. I think because it's technically illegal to sell airbags used, and so I think they just removed it to cover their ass, which is totally understandable. But I either need to source a whole nother steering wheel that I can like commandeer one of those from, or just completely replace this airbag, and they're really expensive, so I'm not doing that right now. So currently I don't have an airbag that's functioning, but I need to get rid of the airbag light because here in the state of New Hampshire, although I don't need to pass any sort of emissions because of the age of this car, I do have to complete a safety inspection, and they want to see that your airbag light isn't on because that means it's not functioning properly. So if they caught that and saw the light, they might not pass me. So I'm going to just get that thing turned off so they don't question it, and hopefully that will work perfectly fine, and we'll be able to get this thing registered so we can get it back on the road and I can start finishing up the tune. And then in other news, my heat shielding showed up. However, 541 Motorsports sent me two of the same ones for this side, and I already called them, and you know, props to them. Their customer support's really good. They've already shipped me out the correct one and told me to just keep the extra one they sent me, which is good because this is the one that I ordered and it's super beat up, and then they just by chance sent me this one that's in much better shape, and so I got to keep the nicer one, and then they're sending me out the right one free of charge. So that's pretty cool. I really like those guys. If you ever see them on eBay, or if you ever even just want to look through their website, I highly recommend them. I've purchased a lot of used parts from them directly from their website and through their eBay shop. They always have free shipping on all their stuff. Their stuff is competitively priced, and their customer support's really good. Like, they're legit. They're located in Grants Pass, Oregon, I believe. But yeah, props to those guys, because they always do a great job, and I get my stuff from them really fast. And I've talked to them on the phone a few times, and they're very helpful. So just wanted to let you guys know that, because now that we have the heat shields, we can get those installed on the engine and get this thing reinstalled in the engine bay, so that we can hopefully get this thing started up and actually moving under its own weight again, and test out that DCCD controller and make sure that it works and it's functioning properly. I'm super eager to drive this thing again. I have barely gotten to really do much. I just got it up and running in order to get it driven up on the trailer to get it transported here to the East Coast, but that's about all I've been able to do with it. But soon enough, this thing will be solid and driving, and we'll be able to get it out on the road and start ripping on this thing. We have a lot to do in order to get to the point where I'm doing like wide open throttle tuning, because I have to break in the motor first. Actually ended up using Drunkman tuning on this car again. I've done some remote tunes, some road tunes through him in the past, and he does a really good job, and he is an excellent tuner. I do highly recommend him, although I don't know that he's going to be doing any more of these style tunes anymore, like the open source tunes. It sounded like he's trying to get away from doing any of that. So I don't know if you want to go this route, if you're going to be able to use him, but you could always reach out to him and ask. He's a super good guy, and he's usually pretty responsive through email. So that's all I got time for on this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. I know it was like kind of sporadic, and there was a lot of like random stuff, but all that stuff had to be dealt with in order for me to get this car registered here. And I don't feel comfortable just going out into the neighborhood and driving it around to try and tune it without at least having some sort of like temporary registration on it. So but yeah, please hit that like button if you got something out of this, and think about subscribing to the channel if you want to see more on this build, because we have a lot more coming soon. And I know it looks a little rough, but we're going to get this thing completely painted as well. The paint booth did show up here recently. My father actually bought a paint booth because he wants to repaint his Stingray Corvette up there, and so we're gonna get to use the paint booth as well. It's a massive inflatable one, so we're gonna be able to get this thing looking so good, and I cannot wait. So yeah, stay tuned for that. That'll be coming up here in the next little while. But yeah, thanks again for joining, guys, and until next time, peace out, everybody.